Hello and welcome to the Serving Kult Podcast, the place where you can explore culture, chaos and hyperpop. Throughout this episode, we will be exploring the world of venues and events. Here we will be speaking to those who are behind a variety of hyperpop and queer rave events across the UK. We will be looking at events and what to expect if you attend, whether events should be more inclusive and keep people safe, and how venues can be more inclusive and welcoming as well. We will also be asking what the future of these events looks like. So keep listening to learn more about the world of hyperpop and queer rave events with me, Anya, and the lovely contributors of this episode. Do you want to tell us who you are, a bit about yourself and where you're based?
Yeah, I'm Ash Taylor.
Ash Taylor?
The elusive Ash Taylor. I'm in Leeds. I am the manager of Freedom Mills, which is like an event space in Leeds. I'm an event manager, like external to that. And a DJ, promoter, all around.
Everything,
everywhere, all at once.
Yeah, my name is Mikele. I am based in Manchester. I am currently the general manager of a venue called Area, which is an event space based in the city centre. We do events from LGBTQ parties to product launches, high-end birthday parties, like anything that any community like might need, we cater for them.
So my name is King Confuza and I'm a drag monster / king and I'm based in Sheffield, UK.
Hi, I'm Naneita. I'm currently based in Leicester actually. And yeah, I'm a student, but I'm also part of internet culture, what I'm here for. And I DJ for them as well.
I am Jake, also known as Phonutrian. And this is Zaron.
Hello.
And together we are Interworld Media. We are based in Sheffield and we've been doing stuff since 2017-ish, but we also go back further doing other stuff. We've known each other since about 2011, 2012. But yeah, the Interworld project roughly started in 2017, so it's been going on for a few years now.
So my name's Paul Spice. I am 1/3 of the party known as Cyber, and we are based in Sheffield. But we go everywhere. We'll go wherever the party takes us.
Oh yeah, or wherever we'll have you as well. I'm sure. Absolutely. You know, in demand.
Mm-hmm. I'm Darby, and this is Eli.
Hello.
Yes, I'm Eli. We are the founding fathers of T40.
Have yourself etched into a cliffside somewhere.
Yes. Yeah. And we're based in Leeds.
I'm Kez and I'm originally from Suffolk, but obviously living in Brighton at the minute with these two. So yeah.
I'm Rachel and I'm from Plymouth originally, but living in Brighton at the moment.
I'm Andrew and I also grew up in Plymouth and yeah, live with these two. Well, three. The dog.
Three, yeah. Can't discount the gentleman in the corner. So, do you want to give a bit of context for people who maybe haven't heard of your event about what it is, what it's called, and what to expect?
So, we're called Sweat Club Night. We're a Brighton-based queer hyperpop party. We throw the event at a place called a Rossi Bar.
We just wanted to make it to have our own music, like the music that we like, and I feel like there's not a lot of places that do that. We've heard it like occasionally out and about, like at different other queer nights, but we wanted to make it like tailored to our taste and find people that have the same taste as us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
T40 is primarily a club night with usually drag performances. We have done one like just drag cabaret, but normally it's a club night, and basically the point of T40 is that it's a like trans like fundraiser for like community members in Leeds. So all of our profits like from every night that we do will go towards just like mutual aid in our community. So like if people need money for top surgery or hormones or whatever, that's primarily like what that money goes towards.
Cyber is we describe it as a queer electronic / hyperpop party for everyone to get involved in. But the main reason we do it was because our mission statement, if you want to be fancy, was we just wanted to put on a place where queer people can party like the hardest. And like I felt like at the time when we started it, there was nothing like that in Sheffield. So we made a party.
I usually say that we put on events that center around experimental electronic music and art of different kinds. So there might be visual art, there might be interactive things going on, there might be some performance art and stuff you wouldn't expect. And each event generally has its own theme. So we try not to do the same thing twice. It gets boring otherwise.
And of course, you have your independent record label side to yourselves as well.
That's true. We also release music. So we release albums. Zaron has done some games through there as well. We had a radio show for a bit, which is archived on our website.
I think we spoke yesterday about like how I wanted to call it Interworld Media and not like Interworld like music and stuff, because there's so many different things to do and things to see, and trying to expand it into much wider fields rather than just events and stuff like that.
So our event is like a black queer rave, right? We play like jungle music, Jersey beats, donk, like everything. And we're kind of just about like having a space for black queer people and allies just to like express ourselves, be free of judgment, just have a really good time. So yeah, and I think we've made like a really good space.
Could you give some more context as to what a drag king and also a drag monster is?
So I am spooky professionally. That is the easiest way to describe it. It is drag. It kind of is where drag meets performance art, and it can be quite conceptual, quite creative, and kind of out there, like a little more weird and unusual than your more mainstream drag counterparts, definitely. So if you come to a Cryptid Queer show, you're going to see some of the most out there performers that you've ever seen, especially if you're Sheffield based, because we don't have a very alternative drag scene. Cryptid Queers, as far as I'm aware, is the only like monster centered night in Sheffield. When I do the night, I started it because I really wanted to create a platform for weird drag, like horror drag, surreal drag, art freaks, just anyone that struggles to get a platform at a more sort of regular show is very, very welcome at Cryptid Queers. Like, if they've been told not to bring other stuff to other events, they're encouraged to bring that to Cryptid Queers. So it's a mashup of a monster drag show and a goth and alternative night. So we have 2 rooms of music from, like, we have a main room that's metal, alternative, rock, new metal, goth, punk. And then we've got the smaller room that's industrial, EBM, techno, uplifting queer bangers, queer anthems, queer sort of pop. And then on the main stage, we have 2 shows where I seek out the weirdest artists that I can get my hands on.
So Limp was, it's like a really strange way of like starting it. It started as like a uni project, as like an exhibition in the gallery at Manchester School of Art.
Oh, very nice.
And then the response to it was like crazy. So the whole premise of it was like, put in queer artworks in a space, and there wasn't really like a theme or like a set of requirements. It was just like, if you identify as queer of any,
any
sorts, then you're welcome. And the response was like really crazy. And we got approached by another set of like people who do events and stuff like that called West Art Collective.
Okay.
And they were like, do you want to bring this into our space and then introduce like music and DJs and live acts? And that's kind of how I fell into like the event scene.
Wow, okay.
And then through doing that for like 3 years, I started a new event called Toothpick, which has just had the launch last weekend. It was so much fun and hot and sexy and gorgeous.
Obsessed.
Same vibe, like queer spaces. I like to call it like queer led, because I don't like completely exclude non-queer people, but like everyone's welcome. But if you are like non-queer identifying, then I just like expect you to act accordingly and like know that you are a guest.
So how important would you say a venue is, as spokesperson for a venue, for cultivating subcultures and scenes?
I think at the center of any community and any scene. I think especially now in an age where everything is so fast, everything happens over social media or like mobile phones. I think having a place where people can go and meet each other and meet new people, I think is super important. It's we as human beings, we're creatures. We're not people that want to be alone all the time. So I think it's important to cultivate places, like nightclubs and venues where you can just go out, maybe after a drink or even not having a drink, but you just go out and, you overhear a conversation, you get involved and, you meet new people and you make friends for life. I don't think that happens a lot anymore, as I said, with like social media and all that. So I think it's super important to cultivate, protect clubs. They're an integral part of like us being humans, I think, like just especially moving forward in the next few years, I think it's going to be super important to look out, as customers, not just like from a government perspective, but customers as well. Like we should all try and, maybe even go out once a month.
Venues are so important for this sort of thing. I think something that I've been asked at our events is that like how can people find stuff like this? I think a lot of people don't know how to even find not just our event, but any other similar thing. And now matters more than any other time in history as in terms of supporting venues and supporting events. It's like it really matters where you go and where you spend your money is really, really important because people need the support. It's not just us, but like venues in Sheffield specifically are closing down left, right, and centre. So many venues that we've played at are just not there anymore whatsoever. When I was doing postering for our last event, I have a big list of venues that I would go to and put posters at, and I realised that over half of them were just gone. They've either been like demolished and they're now a car park, or they're just closed down. One of our favourite ones was Dina. We used to do lots of events at Dina in Sheffield, and that closed down late last year, which was very, very sad. But also places like Access Space that I've seen some of my favourite pieces of performance art there, and it's not even a car park; it's just an empty space now. And it's just there is just so little being done to support the venues and the subculture, and it's just such an enormous shame to see places that inspired me personally aren't available to anyone anymore. So the fact that we could be doing that for someone else is really what gets me inspired to keep doing stuff like this.
People who are like in charge of a venue don't necessarily have to be queer, right? Obviously that helps. If you're going to be like a queer focused venue, like having a queer person in a position of like power, I guess, is important and useful. But I think like having spaces where people are just like willing to sit down with you and like understand your type of crowd, understand what's coming, listen to you when you say like, we're concerned that like this could be a safety issue because you've got another thing happening on the top floor and we're on the bottom floor. Like, it's about being an ally. If you're not part of the community, it's about being an ally and like understanding and genuinely like having care for the queer spaces that you're putting on, as opposed to like churning out events for money.
Yeah.
And it's just nice to actually be able to like interact with your community, like not in a digital space, because I think like when we're together at Wharf and stuff, no one is like talking about any sort of discourse that divides us. It doesn't get into, just sort of like the minutiae of like the queer experience. It's more just like we're all here.
Everyone's just kind of
each other.
Yeah, there's already like a level of understanding before you go into it.
Yeah, and I think that's why I definitely think Wharf is a really good like space for that. Like specifically, it's like everyone there just like has that mutual like sort of understanding and respect, like because it's a members like club as well. So like it feels like everyone there really cares about the space, which is really nice.
But like from my perspective, right, we have events, but it doesn't mean we have constant spaces, right?
Right.
So I think there's a big difference there. Like there's a lot of queer events or Black queer events, but there are not consistent Black queer spaces, like a venue that you can go every week, because that's what builds community, right?
Right, okay.
I think that's kind of the line that I was making in like the spaces that are limited.
They are incredibly important because we can't put the night on without the venue, but the challenge is finding a venue that is inclusive and takes the safeguarding seriously so that we can make it a safer space. That is the challenge, because there's venues, but they don't all have that aspect. And the other part is, because it's a queer night, accessibility is a big concern for me. Finding a queer-friendly, accessible space that was big enough and had everything that we needed was a real challenge. I was really lucky to be approached by Forge, to be honest.
And so for the foreseeable future, are you kind of planning to stick with Forge as an event space?
Absolutely. Forge have been absolutely brilliant to us. Like, they've been so accommodating and so supportive of us bringing the night there. From Dan just being really friendly and easy to work with and really supportive, and Zaron and Ben, the lighting and the sound techs, putting so much effort in and like collaborating on how they can help make the show even bigger and better from the technical point of view. We've had so much feedback on the venue and how people love it, because we moved there recently. February was our first party there.
Right.
So I have no plans of leaving Forge unless they decide that they hate us and kick us out, but I hope they love us.
If you could tell other venues to do one thing to kind of improve their safety or inclusivity or their safe space, what would you tell them?
I will tell them that the hospitality industry is not a competition, so you don't have to work by yourselves. It should be it should be a community where every venue talk to each other and improve standards, and and together they achieve new goals and make the venue safer. I think there is too much of people trying to destroy other venues and not work with other venues because they're gonna take their business. But in reality, in my opinion, the more venues there are, the more people come out, and the more people will try different things.
Freedom Mills is its own entity, but say if you were to pick a space in Leeds that was more central, would you make it more exclusive, not in sort of like this yes no, but a queer space only, or would you kind of keep it for everybody as well?
I think so. Like, at the very core of every event I put on, it's like for the queers, by the queers. Yeah. And like that is something that I make very evident every single time. Be that like with the lineups that we do. We had a limp event where every person on the lineup was trans femme or non-binary, and that was like a night specifically celebrating people who identified as transgender. So like, it's pretty clear, like what
in the kind of marketing and stuff you do.
But I think I'm always open for anyone to like express themselves and come and have a good time, but just be respectful. Be respectful.
I mean, I should probably say first off, I myself, I don't identify as queer really at all. Nevertheless, so I think our approach that we've taken with this kind of thing is we just try to put on lineups of people from different backgrounds or who are involved in different scenes in Sheffield or wherever. So we feel like a good way to try, if we're trying to challenge norms or stereotypes, say, like, for example, the idea that the only people making good music are just like white men, then a good way to do it is to put on lineups of different artists, but without drawing attention to the fact that it is just like an exclusive lineup of people from just one background. The reason we're putting on people is I think it's just because we've met them or we've seen that they're doing cool stuff that we like, and we're like, just come play our thing. And I feel that if you get enough people, say someone attends our event and they might have never seen that someone who isn't like a white man could make such crazy electronic music, it would probably challenge their beliefs. And so if you just have like an event that is exclusively trying to just be for one kind of person, then you wouldn't get that mixing of different people or different groups, which is all part of.
That's part of events. It's for a variety of people.
Yeah. Do you know what I mean? I feel like that's a good way to try to challenge your the beliefs that you might already have.
So one of the events that you put on, which was the 22nd of March, it was a jungle hardstyle techno rave, but it was for POC people only.
Yes. Yeah.
Would you say there's benefits to making the events exclusive just to a certain group of people for specific events?
I think that event, I wasn't so much involved in that. That was kind of like Marshall's baby. But I think it was kind of like a tester to see, oh, is this something that we could do? Is this something worth doing? How does it feel? I think from that we learned that we kind of need to make sure that we're like catering to our audience, make sure that we're like true to our audience, which is very important because if the space is not ours, then like if we don't keep it to a certain level exclusive, then it kind of just becomes I don't know, not as safe anymore, not as inviting. But at the same time, it's still important to like have a mix of people, isn't it?
Yes and no. I kind of like fall in the middle, and I'll tell you why. We have had incidents early on in cyber where I'll use a specific example. We were having an event at a club that we'd never held an event at before. So we kind of like gave the staff and the bouncers like an idea of what the event was, and we were selling tickets on the door. So we were like, yeah, like that's absolutely fine. Let everyone in. Don't turn anyone away. Like it's fine, blah, blah, blah. But at the same time, we had said like, but just know that this is a queer event and this is a safe space for queer people. So if people turn up to the door who you don't think are going to get the vibe and not going to understand why maybe people are dressed a certain way or people are dancing a certain or whatever, maybe just advise them that this event is maybe not for them. And then that club then decided to just like go on their own accord, and they let people in, and we had an incident where someone was called a slur in the club, and since then we have been like adamant that like it feels weird because it feels like you don't want to profile people before they walk in, but at the same time you have to think of like what you have advertised this event as, and if queer people in your space don't feel safe because you're just letting in everybody, then I do think there is a kind of conversation to be had about what's the correct word?
Making it more inclusively exclusive.
Absolutely. I think that's definitely a conversation that is an ongoing thing with cyber and other queer events in Sheffield, because sometimes our club nights, because they run on to a little bit longer, you often get people that are coming back from a night out that want one last drink, so they'll like try and get into our event, and it's like you don't really like you don't want to say no to them because it's like you don't want to feel like you're turning them away, but at the same time I'm like, I know that if you come in here, it's not going to be like you've just walked out of Tank with your straight friends. Like it's not the same vibe. So I do feel like there's a little bit of a there needs to be a balance to it, and I think that's something that we're like working on for sure.
It's something we've talked about before, you know. It's like definitely. In like across the pond in Brooklyn, they're like queer scene, you know, it's they have strict dress codes, which kind of helps with that because you won't find some cishet wanting to go in like a little harness, you know, to a club, like you know. But
I think that's what like I part of why I started T40 is partially my interest in like the kink scene as well, and like obviously there are a lot of like kink events are like all inclusive, not necessarily specifically LGBT, but for me personally, as like a trans person, I would prefer to go to a kink event that was like exclusively LGBT. So I think we're not going to start running those yet, but in the future we will. And I think like at least for those, I don't think it would be all inclusive of allies. But one thing with T40, like initially I was like, oh, I just want this to be for queers, like I don't want any allies to show up. But I think it's like these are fundraiser events, and you know it's all fine and good just asking other members of the trans community to support each other, but like that money does run out, and it's like I feel like one of the best ways you can be an ally is just like by giving
and
direct
supporting
aid, you know.
I think that would be more detrimental to Cryptid Quiz personally, because it's a queer and alt event. So if it was purely a queer event, like I do see events that are purely for queer people, marginalised genders, and I think they're amazing. But because the goth and the alt scene is so queer-centric anyway, there's most of the people I know that are all bisexual, queer, like polyamorous, do you know what I mean? It's the goths and the alts that are like monogamous and straight are kind of in the minority. And because it can be so difficult feeling safe in being alternative and finding a safer space can be quite difficult.
Mm-hmm.
Because we do have nights that exist in Sheffield, but a lot of the time they're in a club with another night. So you have to deal with like the normies. And I wanted to have... it's true though, you do have to deal with the normies.
Yeah, I understand. Very much so.
So I personally, I think that in 2024, we should all be mature enough to understand that everyone is different, and whoever you sleep with does not make you a good or a bad person. So in a way, I will hope that, you know, in this day and age, we will be able to go out and feel safe everywhere. Having said that, the world is not perfect. So there is value in having exclusive events for certain communities and certain, you know, like niche of like people, not necessarily, especially like for a girls only sort of situation. Like I feel like gay guys have Grindr, for example, if they want to meet, but girls don't necessarily have like an app that, you know, lets them meet. So
does the same thing, yeah.
Have a safe space for them. I think is super important.
Could you give a bit of context as to, you know, how you got to this point where you were like, I guess we better put on an event then, because no one else has done something like this before in Brighton, which I'm very surprised about. I thought Brighton would be like Hyperpop Central.
Well, there's been a couple of events that we've been to. Like there was one we went to that was a Sophie tribute, and that was like really fun. But like again, they only played like a couple songs, so we were like, you know, we want this for the whole night.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, there's definitely been other hyperpoppy things popping up around Brighton. I think there's a couple like new nights like ours, I think.
Yeah, I think.
But yeah, I haven't seen anyone specifically being like, this is a hyperpop focused night exactly.
So in terms of you and Interworld, do you want to give some more context on kind of how that came about and whether we can expect future Interworlds in the future? Well, sorry, Cyberworlds in the future. That's more important. Cyberworlds in the future.
So I met Jake from Interworld. I was DJing an event that his girlfriend was DJing at. And it was just like another like event in Sheffield that we had both been booked for. And I met him through her, and he was like, oh, I've heard of Cyber. Like, I think he'd been to a Cyber before at this point, because this was maybe the first year in doing Cyber or the second, I can't remember. And he was like, oh, like, I really like the vibe of your event. And we were like, oh, yeah, we really like the vibe of yours. He gave us a flyer for, like, the next Interworld event they were doing at Forge. So we went to his event to see, like, what it was all about. And then from there, we were just like, we really think that, like, we meet in the middle of, like, a Venn diagram type of thing. Like, we have such a crossover of music, audience, and just, like, overall vibe. And we were like, why don't we like do something? And they were like, do you know what? Like, why not? Like, what is there to lose, really? And so last year in, I think it was May, we did the first Cyber World, which proved to be like incredible. It was like one of the best like events that we've put on in Sheffield. And so then this year we were like, should we do like a round 2, like see if it's like still giving? And I would say that like, hand on heart, this last event that we did with Interworld was probably not just the best Cyber World, but the best cyber thing we've ever done. Like it was, it was incredible. Like it was so good. It was so busy. It was, the vibes were just so good. And there was a power cut halfway through it, and like that didn't even stop the like crowd getting like chat. Like, I don't know. It was just so good. Like it was such a good night. And so they are a group that we work with closely.
So we got to know the Cyber crew, who are another Sheffield-based party crew, and we came up with the great idea of putting on an event together, so collaborate on an event. And so last year we did, so it was Cyber and Interworld, we did Cyberworld, which was all centered around, I think our theme was fighting games. So like
the first
Tekken,
one was fighting games,
Soul Calibur. that kind of thing. And so we had 4 DJs and artists from Interworld, 4 from Cyber. We sort of did a bit of a sound clash in a way. And that was at Forge, the Forge warehouse. And we had great big stacks of CRT TVs. Zaron, did we have different things going on each side?
Either side of the DJ, there was stacks of CRT TVs. I think there was about 7 that time. And I separated them out into one screen was one thing and the other screen was something else. So I could I basically used them as like lights. So I had like loads of pink visuals on one side and loads of green visuals on the other side. Wow. But because there was no other light in the room, it just really filled the room up with this enormous like analog glow. It looked really nice. I was really, really happy with that.
The mainframe event we did.
That was one of my favorite ones, I think, specifically because I got to use the maximum amount of TVs that I had. I think I did 4 different installations at that one. So there was different like groups of computers all set up in the space, and one of them had like loads of VHS stuff. One of them had. What was the big old Mac that we found at the venue? We found like an old timey, those see-through Macs.
Yes. So it was partly in collaboration with Alex McLean and some live coders, some people in the live coding scheme. But then we also had Dom, who also performed as DJ Cyberspice.
Yeah, exactly. It is created as a safer space for the queer and alt community, and we only really have those kind of people turned up. It's very queer and alternative, which is amazing, because especially you have queer spaces and you have alt spaces. There's not a big intersection in Sheffield of a queer alt space, so it's nice to have that extra sort of layer of safety where we know that we're all catered for, and it is a night like by a queer goth weirdo for queer goth weirdos at the end of the day.
I think it was just finding a community for ourselves. I come from like near Harrogate, which is really Tory.
For real.
And there wasn't much of like a queer scene there. Well, there wasn't a queer scene. So I latched on to like the few friends who I knew were like LGBT and such and trans, and we also had like a love of techno, and we would go to Wharf Chambers every weekend, spending like £40 on Ubers just to get back, or like £10 train there, £10 back, and so eventually we were like, we might as well just live here, and we might as well start our own event to create a bigger, like a wider network of people in our community.
Yeah, I think, with putting on our event specifically, it was like we knew that there were like events such as like Dirt Dykes, which is like lesbian run events and stuff, and we knew there were like fundraisers and things for trans people, but like we weren't really seeing enough that was like specifically set up by trans people.
Oh, right, okay.
And that was like, or at least if it was set up by trans people, that wasn't maybe the focus of their event. And I think we wanted it to be more specifically like about primarily like our community. And then for me, like I'm a drag performer and I was fairly new to the scene. And it's really hard, I think, when you don't necessarily know anyone to like book lots of gigs and stuff, and also like book gigs for events that like fit the theme that you want and everything. Yeah. So it's kind of just that attitude of like, well, if you want like there to exist something in the world, you should just make it yourself. And I think we found out that like booking Wharf was actually quite affordable. So yeah, I think that's like specifically why T40 initially started out as like a hyperpop event. So we definitely wanted to see like more of the, like that genre.
I don't know, I'm happy with the direction that we're going in with Toothpick, because it feels a bit more like meaningful and
organic.
Yeah, it feels like these last few years have like given me the tools to like to put these events on.
Yeah.
And to actually like know what I want and know what I need and know what other people want as well, because it's like through these events running like Limp and also working at Freedom Mills, I've met all of the people that I'm like friends with now, and like, it's Toothpick for me is like so community based. So while I say that like everyone is welcome, it's not for you. You can come, but it's not for you if you're not identifying as queer. I use that word as like an umbrella term.
Of course. How long has 0116 Internet Culture been a project? How long has it been a thing for?
I think from May 2022 was our first event.
Okay.
And then I think in like winter 2022 was our first event in London. So it's not been that long, and we've only put on like a few events in the year.
But at the same time, all of these, for context of people, seem to have very much iconic themes, probably some of the best posters I've ever seen in my life ever.
Yeah.
So where does the inspiration come from for doing these different kind of themes?
Oh my God. I think that Marshall is the one that does the posters, and Raven as well. And both of them, I mean, we all just like throw a bunch of themes in the chat, and then we're just like, oh yeah, we should do this, we should do that. So I think the Habba Hotel one, that might have been like Marshall's idea. What else have we had? We've had like, I have them all on my wall, so I'm just looking. Like, had Nerdcore.
I just saw that one, the 2012 one.
That one was my favorite. I really liked that one.
What should we expect as people who've never been?
Okay, so picture you walk into like a DIY event. It's a bit dark, it's a bit damp. You go down these stairs, but all of a sudden you're like hit with all these like bright lights, and there's like fucking flashes. Am I allowed to swear? Sorry.
Go on, do it.
Okay.
Go for it.
There's like fucking flashes and like pots and pans like echoing in the background, and there's like, I don't know, just music like you've never heard before. And then you walk into the most like inviting, like, I don't know, everyone's just so nice there. Like, and again, that comes down to that bit of community where I'm like, the music's great, like I love the music, but I think one of the pushing factors for it is like seeing these people have fun to music like that in my event. I'm like, that's priceless.
How important do you think your events are for kind of cultivating this subculture in your community?
I don't know if that's like, if I'd be a bit too big for my boots if I said that I think we were, but like, I can hand on heart say that I don't know of any other events like ours in Sheffield.
Okay.
And I think that is why we have such a following, because there isn't really anything else. Like, there are kind of like, I feel like there are people that we fit into like a Venn diagram with, but there aren't any groups that do something like Cyber does.
I mean, to a degree, I would say the thing with the trans community is that there's so many like incredibly talented people, especially like there's so many trans DJs. It's like, it's brilliant. And I think just 240, I guess we're contributing in the sense that like we're just like platforming all those people that already exist, like in that community, well, our community. And like, I think what we've probably done is like make people realize that they can start their own things, and it is more accessible than they think. Because I think like if you're trans or, you know, working class or disabled or anything, you often get told what you can't do. And then I think like at least amongst our friends or like, you know, just like peers in the community, like I think we've just been a good example of like, oh, you can put on your own stuff even if you've literally got no money and no experience.
I hope so. Yeah, I guess it doesn't necessarily like feel like we're creating a subculture because it's like we're playing other people's music, but we are definitely creating like a community.
I was going to say we're like bringing a very online genre to real life and like face to face, I think, and like being able to actually enjoy it in a space with other people that, like, it's so different to like being able to chat about it online, which obviously a lot of people do.
Mm-hmm.
I think that not really just our events, but DIY events in general are key to allowing different music and art subcultures to thrive. Because I think where else are you going to get really supportive spaces so that you can go and watch other people play music, but then also you're in the audience. Maybe you'll end up sort of becoming one of the artists, because what we're doing isn't, I don't think, anything too groundbreaking or crazy. I think if anything, we're showing other people that you also can put on stuff yourself. You can go from being a member of the audience to like one of the artists. If maybe you're I'm really interested in just how many other bedroom producers there are, people who make art and stuff in their rooms with whatever technology they have. But it still might be some of the best stuff out there, but you would never know it because it would just, the stuff they put online is just on a SoundCloud profile somewhere with no views. It's really interesting to me that if we can attract people who are doing that sort of stuff, who are in Sheffield or wherever, and platform them, then that's really cool, I think.
There's something so beautiful about like being in a club space surrounded by people who just get it. Like,
there's no conversation about it. Everyone's just on the wavelength.
Everyone's just on the same page. You could like walk up to a stranger in the corner of the room and like you best friends. And that is like exactly how it felt. And I was like, I kind of took that with me into like every night out, like queer club night kind of vibe. And then like met all of like my best friends, like the loves of my life on dance floors. And like, you know, I think like club spaces are really important, and they're often just seen as like a place to go and like get fucked up to, but that's not always the case. Like,
and I guess it's not for everybody, because some people might have things where they're going to go to a space but they don't drink, so they're actually just going there for the music, for the atmosphere, for everything. You
know, people a lot of the time, events specifically, clubs are different, but events, you're not going to go to an event if you don't like the DJ.
Yeah, very much so.
Or the artist. Like, you're going to see these people, so you naturally have an understanding with the other people in the room that you're on like the same level.
Absolutely.
You have a similar interest. And I think when it comes to like, take Sophie for example, such a like pioneer in the sound of music and like an advocate for trans people, being a trans woman herself, like there's so much more meaning attached to these. Like, there's so much more meaning attached to this idea of like you have a common understanding with each other, because you're all like so like-minded that it's like you might as well be having the same thought.
Yes, 100%. So obviously every event that we do has a niche of, you know, like the core followers, but then you have lots of people that want to try it, and, you know, they've heard the venue, you know, it's brand new, so people want to come and experience it. And it's really nice when people come to a different event, and not necessarily the fetish events, because obviously those events, like, we make sure that only people that know what they're getting into get in.
Of course.
But for example, you know, like when Vanilla is on our Friday and Saturday nights, you know, which is our girl, so the lesbian event that we do every Friday and Saturday, and you have different people coming through the door, especially now. I think there is like a new wave of like younger girls coming like to clubbing, and it's really nice to see, you know, people that have been coming for years to the venue with this new generation gelling together, and, you know, talking about their experiences, and, you know, especially in a safe space like, you know, like Vanilla is at the moment, because, you know, we control the amount of guys that come in. We don't let single straight men in, because obviously we want to make it a safe space for girls. People tell me we're sexist all the time, but as the only lesbian venue in the northern England, I can safely say yes, we are sexist, and we only do it to protect the girls that are inside.
We have just announced for Charlie XCX's new album Brat that's coming out. We're doing a unofficial launch party of that album, which basically is just giving everyone an excuse to listen to this music in the club. And I think that's how it's designed to be listened to, especially with this album. So I really think that like the crossover is like perfect. So we have that coming up on the 7th of June. We're doing it the same day the album drops, so I think it's
our album release party. I mean, it's going to be club classics like the song.
Absolutely. So. And then the only other things that we really have like plans for that I can talk about is there's not really much of a Pride in Sheffield, to be completely honest, and we have done for the last 2 years, we have done a Pride event as part of the Tramlines Fringe community.
Wow.
And they have always gone down really well, but the venue that we would do it in has since closed down. So we're in the process of like trying to work out where would be good to house something like that. But that is something that like we're really passionate about, because as I say, it all comes back to that sense of community. And those Pride events were like really like a big part of that. So yeah, keep your eyes peeled for something Pride related, and keep your eyes peeled for the Charlie XCX stuff.
May 31st, it's the Friday night, I think.
Yeah, so it'll be like 11:59 p.m. until like 4 a.m. Just in case anyone, because people get confused with the dates of it, will go into the 1st of June basically. But and the dress code is going to be quite fun because the theme is
it's
the op.
The op. Like, have you had the op yet?
Like, have you had the surgery?
Have you had the
it's like
snip?
sort of slightly transphobic questions that people get asked, but it's very medical based. So I don't know, people wearing like bandages or like surgical
You're
things
expecting
and stuff.
stethoscopes, white coats.
Yeah, I mean, there's like our performances are going to involve a little bit of sort of light like body horror and stuff. It's going to be quite out there, definitely more so than our previous events. But I don't know, in terms of DJs, what was it, the music vibe?
Like,
I think it was quite
jungle and garage, bass line.
Yeah.
Kinda.
So definitely,
I love that music, so.
Yeah.
And you've obviously got an event coming up as well, if you want to talk about that, which is your beach core event.
Yes. So our beach-themed beach court event. Just come like you're coming to the beach. It's the summer. We may or may not have a pool. Who knows? It might be filled with water.
God.
It might be filled with balls. We've really not decided. And honestly, I think it's going to be really fun. I'm excited for this one.
Yes, so our next event is July the 13th, and it's our Thought Summer Night because it's our summer party. Yeah, I like to have stupid... They're all stupid editions, by the way.
That's a really, really
I like
good
to give them
title.
stupid names. It's a Thought Summer Night. So that was one of our DJs because I was like, I need a name for this July one. So they were like Thought in the City. Like there was loads of variations of Thought. So we've got Thought Summer Night in July. And that is July the 13th at Forge. Tickets are on sale right now, including a limited amount of concession tickets for people on low incomes, because I also am passionate about being able to include people that are on low incomes, as you know, and you can also reserve a disabled space. There's also a pay it forward option, and we have a tip option as well, and that goes straight to the artist. I don't take a cut of the tips. I like to say I only accept tips in the form of virgin sacrifices, and they're normally a bit thin on the ground, let's be real.
I wouldn't say I've ever paid in one. Wouldn't know where to go. It's kind of a bit like Bitcoin, I guess, you know. Some places take it, it's like American Express, some take it, some don't. Thank you for coming along on our journey into venues and events. We really hope you enjoyed the episode. If you want to learn more, you can find our social media at Serving Kult on all platforms. There will also be extra interview content, behind the scenes, and more, so please make sure to give us a follow. And if you want to find out more about the music you can hear at these events, check out the Serving Kult radio show. Please also make sure to review the podcast if you enjoyed it. And one more, tune in next month to hear about upcoming artists and their opinions on the hyperpop and queer rave scenes. See you soon.